Hey guys, it's Thomas here, and as promised, we're doing the Q&A video for the Mega Build series where I'm answering your questions that you left in the comment section. So let's do this. Thomas, love the series, love the fish, but it shocked the hell out of me to see you add your new fish directly into your tank with fresh water from store stock water. I've been a Big Al's fan for years, and they're my go-to people I turn to if I have a problem with my tank fish or whatever. And the one thing I was told was never add your fish directly into your tank without at least adding some of the water from your own tank into the stock water from the store, as it can throw the fish into shock. So to see you do that just now nearly knocked me off my chair. Please explain. Okay, so when I'm adding fish to an aquarium, in general, I like to do a drip if I can, or even add water from the tank to a bag and slowly acclimate the fish. But the fact of the matter is that only does so much because it actually takes weeks for fish to adjust to a new pH level if there's a difference, or a new hardness, etc. So it does ease them into it, but it's not vital, I would say, for most species. And at the end of the day, those fish had been in the bags for quite a while, just the way everything got set up. We went to the store, we had to break for a bit, to then get set up to shoot again once we got there. So the fish had been in the bags for a while, and ammonia can build up. And the ammonia actually doesn't become toxic until you open the bag and expose it to the atmosphere. So rather than potentially have my fish go through any kind of ammonia poisoning or ammonia burn, I decided to just get them from that, what was probably ammonia-filled water, directly into ammonia-free water, which is much more important than that slow acclimation because the ammonia is much more damaging. So that's why that happened that way. If my stuff sits in a bag or goes through a long shipment, directly into the water as fast as possible so that the ammonia in that bag does not affect the fish when you open the bag. If it's not that, if they've been in the bag for a short period of time, I like to slow acclimate them. Thomas, any way we can get a list of the fish names you added to the 265 tank? Okay, there's actually a video that shows you all that, but I guess I'll just rename them. So I have a large Viejas and Spilum in there. I've got a group of 6 filament barbs. I've also got a pair of rotkeel severums. I've got a pair of orange spot or red spot severums. They have different names, whatever. I've also got a pair of threadfin acaras, which are like geophagus basically. I also have a humphead geophagus, a wine milleri juvenile in there, and I believe that is everything. That was in there on that episode. How many fish could this tank hold, and how many water changes do you have to do? How many fish could it hold? It could hold 1,000 fish, or it could hold 1 fish. I guess it really depends on the fish. Water changes, same thing. I could, currently with the fish that are in there, I haven't yet done a water change. I'm not even really reading much in the way of nitrate, but I have relatively few fish for the massive volume of water, so it's actually going to take a while for those nitrates to build up. But I would assume with the current stock that I have in there, I'm probably going to be looking at a water change once a month. But as the fish grow and I put more fish in, that's going to become much more frequent. If I completely fill that tank with fish, I'm probably going to be doing a water change once every 2 to 3 weeks. Can you please provide a shopping list for all the equipment you used? Yes, I can. And I've already done that, and you can find it in the description below because it would take a while to read it all out, which would be arduous. And I refuse. Description. How's the Marine Pier going? I've just picked up 3 gallons of spheres for my indoor turtle pond and just found out Marine Pier is made with or from aluminum. I have asked Sarah Media directly about this, but wanted to know your answer, if it's safe for my turtle filters. Well, so far everything's going great. It could actually be going better than I was hoping for because I'm reading low nitrates still, even though I feed the fish pretty heavily. So it could be the fact that I'm actually getting some denitrification as well between the denitrate and the Marine Pure 8" by 4" block that's in the slow flow section of the sump. When it comes to the aluminium. This has actually been discussed even by reef keepers because there was some concern there. But the aluminum is not in any sort of amount as well as usable form where it can break down essentially and cause any kind of havoc. So far, with all the testing that's been done, there is absolutely no reason to believe that it is at all harmful. In fact, it seems to be extremely beneficial in terms of culturing bacteria and there has been no reports so far of the aluminum causing any sort of issues. You should get a green terror. I thought you said green terror. You said, this is not your tank. You go home. Hey Thomas, I thought the loop LED lighting was made for saltwater aquariums. Is it good for freshwater tanks? It can be. I kind of went over this. Did you watch the videos? Did anybody watch these? Yes, it is made for saltwater aquariums. In fact, it is geared specifically for reef keeping. However, it is fully controllable and it has RGBs in it. So you can basically turn the blues right down, tune the RGBs to make it a little bit warmer looking, and make sure the whites are at 100% because you have a nice combination of a warmer white and a cooler white. And it'll definitely be suitable visually for fresh water. But the key thing is, if you say wanted to grow plants with them, you could still do it, even if you had the blues turned up all the way, because the plants can still utilize the blue spectrum for photosynthesis. They actually peak at 440 nanometers and 660 nanometers. 660 nanometer for plants is going to encourage a lot of outward and upward growth. So it'll make the plants longer and bigger, whereas the blue spectrum encourages the thickening of the base of the plants, the stems of the plants, and makes plants a little bit more compact but more robust. So usually having a combination of the two is going to lead to better plant growth for freshwater. So you might just have chunkier, stockier, more robust looking plants, but that's not a bad thing. And honestly, most cichlid people would like to have like African cichlids specifically, like to have a more ocean look in their tank, and will utilize a saltwater fixture for that aquarium. So you could definitely just take it as is, the IC Orbit Light, and throw it on a cichlid tank, and people will love it. But I will say that Current USA does have the Satellite Plus Pro, which is geared for plants and perfect for them. So you could always just go that route. And maybe someday, if they're listening right now, Current USA, are you listening? Make an IC version of the Satellite, because I think people would use it. I am people. And so is the person who asked this question, and we matter. Can you do an update on the Current USA loop lights, wave pumps, and return pump? So far, the lights are doing awesome. I scheduled them. They haven't broken schedule at all. I really enjoy, I kind of programmed the sunrise and sunset to look a little bit more like you'd expect from a sunrise or sunset. So it's kind of a pinkish orange first thing in the morning, pinkish orange right at the end of the day. And then the moon lighting is kind of like a bluey white, because you can completely program them however you want. And they're doing a great job. I'm not getting a ton of algae because I've actually turned the fixtures down quite a bit just to make sure they're bright enough to make the fish pop and spread the light all over the tank without it creating algae, which is important. So far, I'm really enjoying the fixtures. They don't get very hot. They're great. As far as the pumps go, they are stellar. They're quiet. They're pushing a lot of water. I often feed the tank from the side where the larger pump is and hold the food right in front of the pump, let it blow it across the entire tank. So no matter where the fish are in the tank, they all get food. Really enjoying that. Every once in a while, I'll turn on feed mode just so that the fish that eat off the bottom, like the Geophagus, the food will sink for them and they'll get it down there. And that's all I can expect from a pump, to blow water and do a good job of it without being noisy. And so far, I can't complain. The return pump, awesome. I haven't really used a lot of DC pumps myself because very early on when DC pumps came out years ago, I had a lot of issues with some of the external models leaking. And it's nothing we've ever carried. This is before Big Al's even picked up DC pumps. But the Current USA pump, it does a fantastic job of pushing water, and the control is incredibly accurate, which is important because with this system, I put a much bigger pump on than I needed, and I needed to dial it back. And I can literally find the sweet spot where if I turn it even just a micro hair to one side, it'll start pushing more water than the return system really wants to take. And I can turn it down just a little bit, and it's right where it needs to be. Anytime I unplug the pump and plug it back in while I'm doing maintenance, it goes right back to the setting it was at. So it's obviously accurate. The pump puts up with a lot of water volume. I've had some food go through the pump, unfortunately, because I took the filter socks out to clean them after I'd put food in the tank, which probably wasn't the smartest idea. And no issues, no grinding, no nothing, just pushed it right through. I can't really say anything more about it other than it's doing its job, and it's doing its job well. You should have had them tie into the floor drain so you could have an under tank drain for super easy water changes. It would have cost more, of course, but considering the mess that was already made, it might have been good to get it all done at one time. I wasn't willing to spend the amount it would have cost to rip up the carpet and then go to the floor drain, which was quite far. It's on the other end of the basement. It would have been a massive disruption for my family since that room and the laundry room are all down in the basement there. And the several days of disruption that we already had was enough. And honestly, I'm not that lazy. I mean, I could spend what would have probably been close to triple the price, maybe more, and be lazy, but I'm not. So I can just do the water changes the normal way. I know it's too late, but I would not have left the carpet under the tank. I would have used some tiles. If you have any kind of water spill, you'll have a hard time getting the underlay dry. I also found it strange that they did not remove the trim. The water in the cement is more than likely saturated in that trim and you may get rot or mold. One last thing, the length of the screws you use to secure the form are probably longer than the thickness of your basement floor. Make sure you fill those holes in. I'm not sure what the water table is like in your area, but it may rise and may get water in the basement. So when Parts Plus came in, they had a look at everything. We discussed a lot of things. We didn't put all of that on camera. We wanted to try to keep it relatively concise. We figured this is an aquarium channel, and the episode was really just about solving the issue, not so much about getting into the in-depth parts of masonry and making sure everything's done correctly. But for instance, they did find the drain, which is across the other side of the basement, checked what the thickness of the actual pour was for the floor. They made sure that they didn't go beyond that. They also checked the trim that was around the aquarium. It's actually solid wood. It wasn't like regular baseboard. It's not MDF. It's not cheap stuff. It was just solid wood that was then painted white. So rather than putting a form in front of that, they just used that as the form as well. There's no way it's going to rot unless I had a giant leak from the aquarium or something that covered everything. As far as the underlayment goes and the carpet, it was my choice to put that back over. And the reason I really felt that that was necessary is because this is a play space for my daughter, and having an exposed edge of concrete just really didn't sit well with me since she's going to play in there. And then finding something to put over top of that permanently also seemed like a lot of work. So then rather than doing that, I just had the carpet rolled back over. I'm not worried about it getting wet because I work pretty diligently. I don't plan on having spills. I have a wet dry vacuum if something does happen. But really the only thing I can imagine happening is a catastrophic failure with the tank or a leak or something in the plumbing that caused wetness to be everywhere, at which point I'm not really worried about the underlayment and the carpet. That is easy enough to replace. I'd be worried about any other damages to the basement. So barring a catastrophe, I'm really not concerned about getting the underlayment wet because I don't plan to do it. Accidents happen, but shot fact. So yeah, water table, I'm well above. It's way down in the valley behind my house. I back out to a park, it's like way down there. My basement is actually above the water table. So I'm not really worried. It's a good question though, solid. How come the FX6 is your backup? I was thinking of using that as my primary. I am a newbie, so please explain why the pros use the Fishtank media system rather than the pre-bought canister filter systems. Well, long story short, it's a backup because the way the tank is set up with the overflows, the sump is the main filter, period. You can set up a sump much in the same way you set up a canister filter. It's just that a sump isn't pressurized, and the benefit being you have a high turnover of water volume, much more than a canister filter would usually be. So you have usually like a couple thousand gallons an hour or more, rather than usually topping out around 1,000, or most canisters are even under that. But you can set up the media in the exact same way. And the other benefit is you have a high amount of surface turnover, causing a lot of oxygenation for the aquarium, and you never get a oil slick on top of the tank or a buildup of proteins across the surface of the water, which gives you that murky looking surface. So that's why the sump's the main filter. Could I use the FX6 as a primary? Sure. I'd probably end up using two of them, and then they would both act together as a primary, and then if one fails, the other's always a backup. But because I already had the sump, I can't run two sumps on this system. It just doesn't function properly that way if you do it. So using the canister filter as secondary filtration, although not actually necessary for that system with the sump, it gives me the redundancy of knowing that if I ever have a problem with the return pump, I still have something in the aquarium filtering and turning the water over so that the fish are safe. Because you invest a lot in your livestock, not just financially, but also emotionally and through hard work and labor, and you form a connection and a bond with your fish, whether it's imagined in your own brain or just a sincere appreciation for their life, doesn't matter. You don't want anything to happen to them. So we always do our best, or at least I do, and I always encourage other people to make sure you have redundancies in place so that if something does go wrong, you've got a way to make sure your fish are safe. So yeah, the only reason it is a secondary filter is because I've already got a sump on there. Otherwise, you could use a FX6 or an FX4 or whatever canister you want, Eheim, Rena, it doesn't matter, as a primary filter. And they do a great job.
What kind of mesh bags are those? And what was that you used to tie off the bigger bag of Matrix?
So that big mesh bag that I used is actually a Eheim media bag. It's meant for their 2262 canister filter, but obviously you can purchase it separately and use it for whatever you want. It's massive because it's meant to hold the biomedia for that filter. So I thought it would work well for that sump since I'm trying to fill up a large space, but keep the media in a manageable system where I can remove it and clean it when necessary. The twist, it's not even a twist tie, it's more like a zip tie, but you can turn it sideways and then back it out so that you can reuse it over and over and over. It just came with it. So that's that.
Is there any worry about water under/in the faux rocks not circulating? I have a large faux rock that traps water inside and seems to cause the water to become cloudy unless I move it and clean it frequently. Any suggestions for me?
In this particular system, I'm not too worried about the rocks. Reason being, they're not pushed super far into the gravel. They're actually pretty shallow, and there is some water circulation that happens through the gravel. So I know the rocks aren't going to just be trapping water and it getting stuck there. If you do have issues with it though, you can perforate the rocks just on the opposite side, so the side you're not looking at, grab a drill and a bit, just pop a bunch of holes in it. That'll allow for some water exchange. Hopefully if it's causing issues for you, that'll alleviate that. The other thing is I plan on gravel vacuuming, and I do it fairly often. Whenever I do a water change on this system, it might not be as often as I usually do it, but regardless, when you gravel vac beside the rock, you're going to pull through the vac all of the dirt that could potentially be inside of the rock or any of the stagnant water. It will get sucked out and removed, and other water will come in and replace it. It's that simple, really. Like, if you're having a maintenance issue, pop some holes in it or gravel vac near them more often. Otherwise, you should be all right. I'm all right. We'll be all right.
Hey Thomas, did you ever figure out a solution to make the returns more silent?
Yes, I did. Next question. I absolutely did. What I did was I took a couple of sponges. They were nice, thick, coarse sponges, stuck them right up where the returns have those holes drilled out so that it can't back siphon, and I just zip tied them in place. Obviously, I'll have to cut the zip ties and clean those sponges periodically, but it's not that big of a deal because the water coming back into the aquarium is actually already through the filtration system, so those shouldn't bog up very quickly at all since it's technically clean water going through them. Just saying. And now they're quiet.
You seem pretty tall. How tall are you? I am 6'5", and it's a struggle.
I'm close. I'm 6'4", and it is too a struggle.
Would you ever consider in the future to convert over to salt water in this same tank?
Consider it? Yes. Actually do it? Probably not. Why? I like nano reefs. I just do. I've kept big saltwater tanks. I've done largest so far is 200 and I think it was 220 gallons roughly. It was only 5 feet, but it was very deep. It was 36 inches tall, and I think it was 24 inches front to back, or 30 inches front to back and 24. I don't remember. It's a lot of effort to keep a much larger reef, and it takes a lot longer and a lot more money to fill in with corals and it end up looking the way you want it to. And seeing as I have a very hard time even in concept doing a saltwater tank that does not have corals in it, I have to stick to reef keeping, and I love it, and I love SPS, and I love clams, and I have the most fun when I do it on a smaller scale. So I probably won't ever go saltwater on a tank that large unless I win the lottery and can buy all the coral at once. Where did you get this tank? Also, do you think it would be okay for my turtle? She is a Chinese golden thread turtle, and she's about 8 inches long. Well, I got the tank directly from Marineland. They shipped it to our warehouse. We carry their tanks, but we didn't have that one in stock at the time, so they sent it to me. Do I think it's good for a turtle? Potentially, absolutely. I guess it would really depend on how you plan to set it up for your turtle. If you need more land space, you'd have to build up out of the tank, or maybe get the non-overflow version, keep the water level a lot lower, and run a canister filter. There's a lot of different ways to set it up, really, but would it make a good turtle tank? Sure. It definitely could. It's a lot of space. I'm sure the turtle would appreciate it. Maybe not with that wood canopy, because you're going to trap a lot of heat with the basking lights. Are you worried at all of your daughter getting into the sump, especially since those doors don't have locks? Haha! Well, you're wrong. They do have locks. Now, they have child magnetic safety locks that I lovingly installed to keep curious hands and drownable mouths out of the sump. Is your wife in the hobby? No. Well, forced into it, I suppose, since she married me. So she's in the hobby, but not because she wants to be. She appreciates aquariums, but doesn't want to take care of them. Can't blame her, especially when she has me in the house. Why would she? Think about it. What's the point? She's got me to do it. And I don't cook. So I'm lucky I've got her, because then I don't have to do that. And all is well in the world. What would be the total cost for complete setup minus the livestock? Cost. That was probably one of the most popular questions that we got. And I haven't directly answered it because I hadn't tallied everything together yet. And now that I have, my jaw hit the floor, and also I have an answer for you. The total it came to was just about $14,500 Canadian after taxes, including what it cost me to get the floor level, and including the odds and ends that I used for plumbing, and my ADJ switchboard that I use for managing the electronics. 14,500 Canadian, which is, I don't know, like $100 US with the conversion. Well, that wraps it up. We've answered a whole bunch of your questions on the Mega Build series, but you might have more. So if you'd like to, feel free to drop those down in the comment section below, and I will tend to them, or Brian will tend to them. One of us will tend to them. They will be tended to, and you will feel like you received the knowledge you so desperately craved. And that is why I'm here, to help, because that's what I want to do. So you guys can keep on tanking into the sunset of fish. The fish set. Sunfish. 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 Took me a bit, but I got there.